your life. With the hustle and bustle of our day-to-day lives, we can sometimes lose track of our goals. The book, The Awakened Woman, Remembering and Reigniting Our Sacred Dreams, combats that. It's published by Atria, an imprint of Simon & Schuster, which is a division of CBS. And the book aims to inspire people to stop waiting around and act now.
Dr. Tererai Trent is the author. She's known as Oprah Winfrey's favorite guest of all time. She grew up in Zimbabwe, but was married early in her teens, but she also knew that she wanted to pursue an education, and she joins us now at the table. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
It's so great to talk to you again, and the book is such a wonderful book for people who are not just looking for inspiration, but looking for guidance in sometimes the most bleak conditions of their lives. And you tell the story of the pursuit of education, but why did you decide to write this book?
Because I realized that the silencing of women is the silencing of everyone else. You might think that we have more silencing in Africa, but I've realized even here in the Western world, women are being silenced, and I wanted to write a book that would awaken women. You know, when I reflect back on what Zora Houston, she's an anthropologist, she talked about there is no greater burden than a story that remains within you. It becomes more painful. And with the Me Too movement, now women have come up and they're talking about the silencing through sexual abuse, assault, and all these things. And I wanted to write a book not only to talk about the silencing, but also to provide the tools to transform women, to say you may be carrying the soul wounds because you've been silenced, but here are the tools that can help you to transcend in a world that ignores women so much. And you can think about in the US, 51% of the population are women. But tell me who are in the top leadership.
Right. I mean, that is the conversation we are having right now. You wrote this before the Me Too movement, you know. You could have easily just written a book about your own personal journey, and that would have been inspiring on its own, instead of sort of giving guidance. But you talk about the importance of education as a tool. Why? How did that play a role in your journey?
Education is the main pathway out of poverty. We know that. I didn't have much education, and I realized without education, I would further be silenced. And that's the reason why I decided to write a book and talk more about education. Because if we don't educate our young men and women, then they are more prone to be silenced. And I've seen it in my own journey. And there is data that tells us that when women are not educated, they are more bound to have more children. I wasn't educated. By the time I was 18, I had 4 children. And I knew that if I don't get education and empower myself, I was going to pass on what I call the baton of illiteracy, the baton of poverty to my own girls. So I didn't want to pass on. And today, my children, they've gone through school because I've been educated myself. I have a girl who graduated with a mechanical engineering degree. That would not have happened.
The baton of illiteracy that you talk about is the one that was handed down from your great-grandmother, your grandmother, your mother to you. And I want our audience to know, when they look at some of the struggles in their lives, the things that they have to do, how long it took you. You're a doctor now, but how long did it take you just to get your GED, your high school equivalency?
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
Wow.
You know, I talk about 8 years of failing, but 8 years of never giving up, because I was living in poverty. I didn't have enough money. I would go through correspondence. So I would try to find money to pay for that class so I could have my equivalence of GED. 8 years. But it also took me 20 years from the day I buried my dreams. I had dreams to come to America, to have an undergraduate, a master's, and a PhD. And then my mother said, your dreams will have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community. It's about giving back to your community. It's not about the degrees that we post. It's not none of that. But it's about how your personal goals, that education is tied to the greater good. So I buried my dreams 20 years.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, literally. You didn't bury, I think people might think you mean you buried your dreams. You buried them in the ground.
No, in the ground. I come from a culture where when a child is born, that infant, they snip the umbilical cord of that child and they wrap that child in a cloth and they bury the contents deep down in the ground with the belief that when this child grows, wherever they go, whatever happens in their life, the umbilical cord will always remind them of their importance. And my mother said, bury your dreams, write them down, bury them. Wherever you go, despite the abuse in your life, despite the beatings, the silencing that you are facing right now, those buried dreams will remind you of their importance. So I buried them. 20 years down the road, I found myself walking that podium that says, now you are a PhD holder. I felt like a lawyer, and I want women to feel the same. And my closing argument was, if we give education opportunities to those who are torn down and marginalized by the social ills of our time, they can achieve their dreams. The silencing of one woman is our silencing. When women rise, we need to be collective in our support of women.
Mm-hmm. The book talks a lot about figuring out finding meaning.
Yes.
And you talk about hungers. There's two hungers. There's the little hunger and the big hunger deep inside. And what I thought was so fascinating, as I was going through it, I thought, often you don't know what your hunger is because you're just doing what you're told to do. You go to school, you do this, that, whatever. Your parents want you to be a doctor, so you go to medical school. And then you answer that. You say, if you want to figure out what your big hunger is, ask yourself what breaks your heart.
What breaks your heart?
Yeah.
What really breaks your heart? It is in those moments of brokenness, in those moments when we look at the society and the things that are happening in our society that breaks our heart, we then begin to hear this stirring, this yearning in us. We want to change the things that are ugly in us. Mm-hmm. We cannot remain victims. And I tell women, don't remain a victim. Be the mistress of your own destiny. Find that great hunger by asking that fundamental question, what really breaks my heart? By doing that, you are finding redemption in your own life.
And in not only finding redemption in your life, you have now, over the last couple of years, helped others find redemption in their lives. You've built many schools. You've helped found a foundation along with Oprah Winfrey. Tell us about that.
Oh, my goodness. We got funding from Oprah Winfrey.
We all feel the same.
Gosh. And it was to support that sacred dream, that fifth dream that my mother said, your dreams will have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community. I wrote down, when I'm done, I want to come back and improve the lives of women and girls. I had no idea how I was going to achieve that. And then when Oprah called and donated money towards that vision, today we have 11 schools in some of the poorest communities in the world, and where we have about 6,000 children that are benefiting from this education. And remember, I talk about growing up in Rhodesia, where children were not allowed to have better quality education. Today we have that. The school, the very first school that we built, no child from that school had gone to university. And today we have several children, and even one, including one child, attending the University of Algeria, doing medicine.
Wow.
The power of believing in our dreams. We can do this. We can do this.
Let me ask you, you rose up from such dire circumstances. When you look around here and you see all that we have, the access to education that we have, are you frustrated when you see that people still struggle to find meaning, to find purpose, to get off their butt?
Sometimes there is adversity there is gift in our adverse. Sometimes it's a gift. Mm-hmm. If I had not gone through what I had gone through, if I had not been brought in poverty, maybe I could be one of those people here. I'm not going to judge anyone, but what I know is sometimes the beauty is in the burdens that we carry.
It's something that you and I have discussed that many times. The idea that the struggle And if it's painful and if it's difficult, it will seem all that more powerful and meaningful and beautiful once you overcome.
Exactly.
Dr. Trent, it's so great to talk to you again. It really is. I think we've gone over on this segment, but it's really worth it, I think, for our audience to hear about your struggle, your hopes, your dreams, and the now redemption that you're offering to people around the world. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.